image they have for the soul is this. They say that if you were to go out into the night, like tonight, go outside and look up into the sky, and if you looked at the moon and looked at the stars, that is the best image you can have of what the soul is. And so they developed, many of the physicians, theologians, the magas of the period, developed this notion of the soul as a microcosm. Meaning that if you look into yourself, that self, is as big and as vast and as mysterious as the night sky is. I mean, that's the metaphor. Now I want to compare that to the automobile metaphor that we work by, or the body as cadaver that we work by, that somehow we can make these adjustments or treat ourselves chemically. I mean, I don't have to tell you this. Just before coming here, I was in a place where the television news was on, and as always happens, whenever the television is on in my vicinity, someone's talking about how we're going to fix something chemically. I was in San Francisco making one of these tours, and I flipped the television on, and the news report said, we're going to ask the question, why people love chocolate. And my ears pricked for that, because I would like to know why I like chocolate. And, an interesting thought. And they said, well, it's this chemical in the brain, that counts for your love of chocolate. There goes that soul, the whole chocolate soul dissolved in this television spot. A couple of weeks previous to that, I received in the mail from Harvard University a rather large fold-out schema of the brain. And it had a red arrow pointing into this one spot in the brain, and it said depression. Now, this is the world we live in. Now compare this to this microcosm view, that the soul is as vast and as mysterious and awe-inspiring as the night sky. I mean, just imagine that. What a different world we are in from that other world. The 18th century philosopher said that the human being is a clock. That was the metaphor. And it's still there. It's still there somehow with us, that we want to tinker with ourselves, and go to therapy to tinker. I think what happens, one of the problems with therapy is that we think we're doing something. I mean, we think we're, when we tinker, we think we're really accomplishing something, and that distracts us from the care of soul. That's another way I'm getting to feel. I knew eventually I'd come around to agreeing with my pal Hillman, because everything he's always said is at first, sound completely outrageous, and after a while it begins to make sense, about 10 years later. And it's beginning to make sense to me now that, yes, either we have to radically reimagine what therapy is for ourselves, certainly. Now, one way to do that I would recommend would be for all of us to go back to reading Plato. Plato talks about therapy all the time. The word therapeia comes up all over the place in Plato. In fact, there's one place where Socrates is asked, what is the meaning of therapy? What do you mean by this word you use so much? And he says, what I mean by therapy is the service of the gods. What the people do at the temples, who take care of the sacred objects, who clean the temples, prepare them for the ritual, they are therapists. That's another good image for the soul, isn't it? How much better than the mechanical ones that we have. A wonderful image for the soul. So I'd suggest you go back, I'm sure it's been several weeks or months since you've read Plato, go back and read those passages. It's very easy, just get a nice collection and look up in the index, therapeia, therapy, and just read those passages. And if you read them and meditate on them for a little while, your notion of therapy might be radically altered. We have a bigger view of what this is all about. Now I think that another thought that's come to me after writing this book is that, and it's on the same vein now, that the very notion of what we're doing when we care for the soul gets a bit strange. It seems to me that there are certain words that we attach to soul, that tradition has attached to soul. Before I tell you those words, I want to tell you that I've been talking to a lot of AM radio hosts over the past several weeks about soul, believe it or not. And some, for the most part, it's quite interesting. It's the very first call-in show that I had to deal with. The very first time I went out, I didn't know what this was all about. And the very first call that came in, the man said, what do you think about turkey hanging? And from there it went.